Atlas All Access coming to you from home again this week. Well, I'm not quite into week 2 of quarantine, but we're getting close to it. So far, no symptoms. Had the COVID test the other day. Wasn't nearly as bad as everyone makes it out to be. Little watered your eyes a little bit. Anyway, on this episode, we talk to new Atlas recruiters. Being a new recruiter should not be a four-letter word. It shouldn't be talked poorly about. I know there are some sites on Facebook, taken with a grain of salt, right? There's been a couple others that have talked very poorly recently about new recruiters, and I don't think that's the case whatsoever. So on this episode, we talk to new Atlas recruiters and get their take on not only what's happening in the industry right now, but what surprised them and what is different about what we do and what sets us apart from maybe other agencies. Atlas All Access, home again, starts now.
I'm Wesley Wright, and I've been a recruiter with Atlas for about 3 weeks now.
My name is Alicia. I'm a recruiter at Atlas MedStaff, and I've been a recruiter here since March of 2020.
Lauren Bensakovich, and I've been in Atlas for 3 weeks.
In the first few months of recruiting, what have you learned? Like what have you learned out of all those the experiences you've had so far?
I've learned so many things. I've learned that I really like talking to people and getting to know their stories. I like recruiting a lot. I recruited previously, but it was not nearly as fun.
Just kind of learned the Atlas way because I came from a recruiting company before. So some of the things were not new, but a lot of things that y'all do were a little bit different. So just learning how important it is to connect to the nurse and really build that relationship, and just that's probably one of the key and core things that I noticed with Atlas, something that shows the longevity of the nurses and why they do stick around with y'all.
The first thing that I've learned is that there are a ton of moving parts to this job. So it's not just a matter of taking a nurse and a nurse's resume and matching it to a job that we have in the database. There's a lot of stuff that leads up to that and going on in the background all the time. So it's really important to have great organizational skills, time management, and just really staying on top of the details.
Is this your first job working from home?
It is.
How is that? How is working from home for you?
I have been working from home since mid-March, which is when the pandemic really started and the governor of our state ordered the lockdown. So the really good things, there's always goods and bads about everything, right? So the good things are that I'm not spending as much money on clothes. We're not eating out as much because we can't eat out really. I am not on the highway driving, so I don't have to deal with the commute. I'm saving a lot of money on gas. We're staying home more and we're doing more things together as a family. So that's been really cool. We've kind of been forced to spend time together. Although that sounds bad, it's been a good thing. The bad things about it are I'm really a social creature, which is one of the reasons why I'm a recruiter. And it's hard for me sometimes not to have that social interaction.
I had one day in the office before everybody got sent home. So it was really hard at first because it felt super isolating, and I was coming into a new role where I just didn't feel like I knew exactly what I was doing. But like now, I love it.
Isn't it interesting how perspective has changed? I still hate it. I'm stuck here at home for 2 weeks because someone that was here was exposed and whatever, and I still need the noise and crowd of the people and stuff and things. And
I have such good work-life balance now. My kid's home with me all the time, so I get to chase around a toddler and recruit nurses at the same time. Like, who doesn't want to do that?
It's interesting now you have a better work-life balance here at home.
Yeah, I really do. I actually, because I'm not spending time commuting, I'm not pressuring myself to, quit working at a certain time because I'm not spending enough time with my son. So for example, he's asleep right now. So this is when I like do a power hour and block out all my time to like really focus. And then when he's up, like I still get to play with him, take like a 15-minute break. And then, I mean, it's the best of both worlds.
I liked working at home. I like working at home with Atlas even more because I feel like I'm able to I'm pretty much focus about all my time on it because I've fully immersed now. I've started to travel some in a camper van and try to meet some nurses kind of out on the road too and recruit some more that way. That's actually where I'm at now. I'm in Virginia. I was working up here with Ronnie this week.
Okay, so in your experience so far, like, is there anything that stands out that a traveler should know about traveling during a pandemic?
I guess if you're ready for a job, don't wait and submit because the jobs go fast, I think right now. Because you have a lot of nurses that are displaced because their staff positions are either not needed or they are just sick of it. So you have a lot of people coming in to travel. So I'd say don't wait around. COVID's everywhere, so you're not going to avoid it. I think that's probably good advice. I don't think you'll probably find a job where you're not going to encounter somewhat of it. That's probably the main two things.
First and foremost, I want them to be safe, safety first always, and to be well, and for their families to be well. So that's something they need to keep in mind. So I don't want them to take something or go into a hospital and do things that they're not comfortable doing, or if they're not comfortable working with COVID patients.
Traveling in a pandemic, oh my gosh, you're brave to do it. And I think that if that's what you want to do, like a pandemic shouldn't stop you. Just make sure that you're being safe and that, you're just doing what's best for you. So, I mean, if traveling during a pandemic isn't what, is best for you and your family, don't do it. But if you're one of those people that's like, YOLO, go for it.
That's an interesting, everyone I've talked to so far said the same thing, like, as long as it's safe, like, be safe. It's fun that everyone has come to that same conclusion.
But I think also it's always important that travelers remain flexible, but I think especially so now in the pandemic, because I know there's a lot of big numbers being thrown around. You see those on Facebook, but all those big numbers don't necessarily mean a good travel experience. So I think they need to keep all of that in mind when they're picking and choosing. I know there's a lot of opportunities on what they take and what they don't take, to remain flexible, keep an open mind, listen to their recruiters, and evaluate all their options.
That's an interesting perspective because, yeah, we can always say like, oh, you as a traveler should be flexible or whatever. But then in the end, it's not every contract is a good contract.
Really lean on your recruiter and use them as a resource. I think, we get caught up in like, this is just business sometimes, and recruiters really can be a good resource, a good listening ear. And, most of the time they want to know what's going on with you. Like they want to be able to help in any way that they can.
Okay. So last question, is there anything about recruiting, because I know you've recruited before, but anything about recruiting traveling healthcare professionals that surprised you?
Yeah. How much I love it.
Definitely the amount of time, because it's pretty much all your time. So it's time consuming, but I think if you put in that work, especially in the beginning, it's very rewarding in the long term because it just becomes more of your lifestyle and not so much of your work.
I think I mentioned before, it surprised me that there's so many moving parts to this. So I think the nurses and the healthcare travelers need to realize that we're not just like plugging people into the database. There's a lot of other things that go on to get them to the location that they want to get to.
When you come into healthcare recruiting, you hear from everybody, even before you start, like how much of a grind it is and just how grueling it can be at times. But it's also genuinely rewarding. And like, I love it. I love everybody that I work with. I love everybody that I talk to. So I think the thing that surprised me the most is just how much I love it.
And I think the other thing that surprised me a lot about it is how much I really love it. And I hate to even say that because I didn't go into the job thinking I was going to hate it, of course. But it's just, it really grows on you. I love the travelers. I love hearing their stories. I love to be able to help them. I love to hear about their adventures and see pictures of where they've been. They all have such interesting stories. And I just really, really have enjoyed the experience so far.
And it's funny that you mentioned that too, because I love those stories too. It killed me to not be able to go to Las Vegas this year, to go to TravCon and
Oh, yeah.
all those, because there's so many, and not that you get a ton of time with every one of them, but every one of them has a story, and every story is unique, and you would just be surprised that just how fun and interesting all of them are. And yeah, that drives me every day. Like, I want to hear these stories every single day, and that's, yeah.